Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin in Nunavut, where tomorrow MLAs will decide if PJ Akiaguk should stay on as premier. The chair of the Regular Members Caucus wants him removed, and his desire to oust Akiaguk has support. As TJ Deer reports, the premier is baffled by the situation.
This was the moment when the premier's job was in the balance. Solomon Maliki is the chair of the Regular Members Caucus. He gave the official notice on Monday.
I move, seconded by Honorable Member for Amito, that the member of Iqaluit Nehungu Manigay be removed as a premier of and as member of Executive Council. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Maliki will introduce his motion tomorrow. Speaking to reporters afterwards, he said members are frustrated by the government's lack of transparency.
There's so much frustration in Regular Member Caucus. There's no transparency in this government, and there's many more other issues that I'm not going to get into.
Maliki elaborated on the claim that the government is not being transparent. He said MLAs have not been receiving answers to their inquiries since the beginning of the Assembly's formation.
When they were campaigning for premiership, that's one of the things that he was going to do, but it's not there.
Premier PJ Akiaguk said he was surprised by the motion. He also disputes the claim over the lack of transparency.
We've provided every update in terms of every progress we've been able to make. We've provided updates not only to the House, the updates to the news releases, or progress reports that we've done.
Akiaguk said he hopes to speak with Maliki about any concerns other MLAs may have. Appearing this morning on Kulak, he said he was proud of his record and that he's confident in the work they've done over the last 3 years. Maliki said he doesn't know who will be the premier or when they will take office if tomorrow's vote to remove Akiaguk is successful. TJ Deer, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Officers at the center of a fatal police shooting in Saluit, Nunavik, allegedly used tasers and pepper spray before opening fire. That is according to Quebec's police watchdog, the BEI. The shooting has caused outrage across the north. Samuel Watt has the story, but first a warning, it contains some distressing details and audio.
Tributes are pouring in for the victims of the police shooting. Joshua Papigatuk, who was fatally shot. His twin brother, Garnet Papigatuk, who was also shot but currently in a stable condition. This video on social media captured the early morning shooting yesterday. We're choosing not to show the moment the gunshots were fired. Makavik, a political organisation representing Inuit in Nunavik, condemns the actions of police. The tragedy, it says, is a reminder that policing in Nunavik needs significant reform. The BEI says early investigation suggests the incident began with reports of someone driving while impaired. Upon arriving, officers got into a physical altercation with the two brothers. They used pepper spray and tasers, but the BEI says that was allegedly unsuccessful. The officer then opened fire on one man and then the other. But one witness CBC spoke to saw the whole incident unfold. They say they didn't see any pepper spray or tasers used. The shooting has caused outrage across the north. Protests yesterday in Saluit and again today in Kuujjuaq. Solidarity too from neighbours in Nunavut, where dozens of people held a candlelight vigil last night in Qikiqtarjuaq. The BEI says they're also reviewing body camera footage from the officers, but that won't be released until their investigation is finished. 5 investigators are heading to Saluit tonight. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Tears and quiet sobbing filled a Yukon courtroom today as friends and family remembered 2 people killed in a shooting in Faro. Sangdwin Honchayapum and Patrick McCracken were murdered by Ralph Shaw 3 years ago. Jackie Hong reports.
More than 20 victim impact statements were filed to the court. They mourned the 2 lives that were taken, the trauma inflicted on a tight-knit community. Honchayapum, known to friends as Sang, was a mother of 2. She was excited to start a new life with her girls, having left Shaw less than 3 months before he murdered her. She had found new freedom and a new love, a new future cut short. McCracken was a husband, father, uncle, and grandfather. His loved ones told the court that he was a pillar of the community, handy, always ready to help, and with a big smile and hug that's now sorely missed. Some of the statements expressed anger that Shaw took Hanchayapum and McCracken away for apparently petty reasons. Hanchayapum for leaving him, McCracken because Shaw believed he had spoken badly about him years ago. Shaw pleaded guilty to first-degree murder Monday for killing Hanchayapum and second-degree murder for killing McCracken. He also pleaded guilty to aggravated assault for injuring Hanchayapum's partner in a shooting spree on October 26, 2021. Shaw's sentencing hearing continues tomorrow. Jackie Hong, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Residents across the Northwest Territories are waiting to see if life will become more expensive as a result of the Power Corporation's proposed rate hike. Residents say they're already paying extremely high prices for necessities like groceries and gas, and that higher power bills will be too much. Luke Carroll has that story.
The proposed rate hike is not sitting well with residents and community governments across the Northwest Territories, from Ulahaktuk to Nahanni Butte to right here in Yellowknife.
The rate increase is going to affect all of our facilities, and including the ones that are going to be opening in 2025, such as our aquatic center. So this will have a material impact on city operations.
Now, Van Dyne says it's up to council to determine how the city manages the rate hike, whether that be through raising taxes or user fees. But he says council and administration are worried about the affordability for Yellowknife residents.
We're very concerned, and I think council is too. The cost of living is high anyway, and when you're increasing the cost of living, it has a material impact.
But it's not just people in Yellowknife who are concerned. Lori-Ann Bertrand lives in Nahanni Butte. She's about to move into her own home with her partner and child, which she's excited for. But now her budget is being put into question.
So, including myself and my family will be on our own for the first time. So it's very unfortunate.
CBC News also spoke with the mayor of Ulahaktuk, who says people are already paying high prices for things like groceries and gas, and that increased power costs could be another devastating hit to their pocketbooks. Now, the rate hike is far from final. The Public Utilities Board will look at the proposal put forward by the NTPC and decide whether it made a compelling enough case. Luke Carroll, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Low water levels and the cost of fuel are to blame for the proposed rate hikes. That is what the minister responsible for the Northwest Territories Power Corporation is saying today. Caroline Wozniak says the costs NTPC is facing are out of its control.
The costs that are being incurred right now start from the low water system that we're in right now, which started sooner than typical cycles, seems to be lasting longer, is more extreme. Fuel costs since 2023, the last time that we had to file, have gone up over 40%. And meanwhile, while there's always some inflationary costs also being incurred, there's no growth in terms of the customer base that we have and in terms of the revenues that we're receiving. So what happens then when the Public Utility Board requests a filing by the utilities, which is the situation we're in now? You have to put forward the costs that you're facing, and then the Public Utility Board ultimately makes the decision. But the costs that we're facing are as I've described. So we're not in much of a situation where we can change those costs. Now, the question from the GNBT side, of course, is what we can continue to do to try to support, whether it's through a direct subsidy or whether it's supports to various infrastructure projects, and that can then ultimately bring down those costs. But it would be coming through from the other side of the other hat I'm wearing, which would be obviously on the government side.
Wozniak says there are opportunities where the GNWT can step in and provide subsidies, and that would bring down the impact on people's bills if the rate hikes do go through. Internationally educated nurses no longer have to be registered outside the Yukon first to come and work in the territory. The Yukon government has updated its registered nurses profession legislation, hoping to make nursing licensing simpler and faster to obtain. Under the updated legislation, nurses and nurse practitioners can apply directly in the Yukon for licenses. That includes internationally trained nurses and new graduates.
I know there's a campaign, for instance, for us to move away from using travel nurses or temporary nursing staff, we are 100% in favor of that. We want every nursing position that we have here in the territory be filled by a full-time person who lives and works here in the territory, and we continue to focus on that so that they can become the integral part of our communities that they are.
Yukon's Minister of Health and Social Services says the change was needed to address the shortage of healthcare workers.
What we're doing with the nurses now is clearing away those barriers to make it easier to recruit the people we're going to need for a growing population to carry it forward. And and this is a national issue, but here in the territory, we're seeing people wanting to come here, and that's a great thing. And we want to make it as easy to have people come to this tremendous place as we possibly can. And that's what at its heart, I think that's the message today, is that we're working together to make it easier to get the professionals into the territory, to service the territory and the people living here better.
The Yukon government says it worked with more than 30 nurses to update the legislation. Yukon's child and youth advocate is launching a review of so-called high-conflict custody disputes. Annette King says those disputes happen when separated parents can't agree on how to divide custody. King says her office receives numerous calls seeking help in such cases, which are actually outside the advocate's mandate.
Since the day I started in 2015, like you say, we've had numerous calls related to custody matters. I think also because we're a child advocate office, people think, oh, are you lawyers? Can you go to court and represent children in a family court matter? And we're not, but the calls continue to come in, and they've actually been increasing over the years. And and we are one of the last points of contact sometimes. When people have called all the places, they call us to try to solve the problem. And we are also saying, sorry, it's not our mandate, and that is not okay with me. And it's not been okay for years. So we finally have said we need to take a better look at this and actually create some action and find these gaps and get them filled.
The review will look at best practices across the country. It'll also look at services available to children involved in custody disputes in the Yukon. A report and recommendations will be delivered to the Yukon Legislative Assembly next spring. Reaction to the death of Murray Sinclair continues to pour in from across the north. Nunavut MLA Janet Pitulak-Brewster paid an emotional tribute to Sinclair on Monday in the Nunavut Legislative Assembly. Take a listen.
Mr. Sinclair's work as the chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission helped many Indigenous people, including Inuit, to tell the stories of their experiences in residential schools, to create knowledge, not just for Canadians, but importantly for family members. Because what we know is that many survivors of residential school did not start to speak about their experience until the Truth and Reconciliation Commission began.
Brewster says Sinclair's work guided many Canadians on the path to reconciliation. She says many families have been torn apart by the impact of residential schools. Marie Wilson served as a commissioner for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission alongside Murray Sinclair. She shared a story from her first meeting with Sinclair before they worked together.
And I remember the first time I met him was not actually with the commission. I had met him briefly before, and in Yellowknife, in fact. And I remember there was a gathering, and it was just after the time of the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry in Winnipeg, in Manitoba, which he co-led. And he came to Yellowknife to talk about it. And I still remember the story that he told. He told us about that experience and about being in some small community hearing, probably not at all unlike the many community hearings we had for the commission, for the TRC. And in that justice inquiry hearing, he said that there was a man there who had been watching. He'd come for several days of the hearings in this particular community. And Murray recounted that he had gone up to the man and said, I see you've been sitting here all these days and watching and listening. and you haven't said anything. And he said, I want to know what's the most significant thing you've heard? And the man looked at him and he said, it was watching and listening to all those people walk up to that microphone, look at you and say, and refer to you as Your Honor. So it was the inspirational impact of what he achieved.
That was Marie Wilson, remembering her first encounter with Murray Sinclair. The two served as TRC commissioners along with Wilton Littlechild. Sinclair died yesterday in Winnipeg. He was 73.
Donations to the War Amps have a lasting impact on amputees. Today, your support gives them the artificial limbs and resources they need for everyday activities and learning to live with amputation. Having access to our essential programs helps amputees prepare for tomorrow on their road to independence. The War Amps is committed to improving the quality of life for Canadian amputees, but this wouldn't be possible without you. To learn how your donation helps, visit waramps.ca.
This is a proposed corridor for multiple pipeline projects.
You're crossing our territory on two ends of your pipeline. Who gave you permission?
Pipelines break of the pipelines would destroy water and everything in it.
They got to come through us first.
Is this an immediate evacuation order for all Coastal GasLink employees? I feel like we are at war. It's just all been building up to this point.
Yenta on the Passionate Eye. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Release him.
Why?
Well, I would say it's extremely bad form to arrest your new boss.
This man is actually in my custody.
What did he do?
Well,
Did you hear that? I'm being charged with,
This ranch isn't going down. Not on my watch.
if the car comes with the deal, I'm in.
Cheers, dragons!
I look forward to fighting you on many a deal.
And we look forward to meeting you.
Dragon's Den. Watch free on CBC Gem.
The question is,
and I'm just going to ask,
I want to ask you, but
why is this such a big deal? What does the science say?
what was their reaction? What are we talking about here? Who told you?
So, to be clear, what is the actual story there?
I think we can explain.
Decision Day has arrived in the United States after an election campaign that saw the incumbent president drop out and his opponent face a would-be assassin's bullet. Today, Americans voted. They did so amid expectations of a cliffhanger result and worries of possible violence. The CBC's Karen Pauls reports.
Around Washington, more barricades, more police presence, even some businesses boarded up. Concern about a repeat of the 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol by Trump supporters. There was a man arrested at the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center Tuesday. Police say he smelled like fuel.
We found a flare gun, a lighter, and a torch lighter in his jacket.
The National Guard has also been dispatched to many states. At some polling stations, there are metal detectors and police officers. Law enforcement using drones to monitor activity around polling places. There are even snipers on standby for deployment. Among those voting today, the Republican candidates for president and vice president, Donald Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance. Trump says he's confident.
Look, I ran a great campaign. I think it was maybe the best of the three. Of course, there'll be no violence. My supporters are not violent people.
Vance and Trump will watch the election results from his home at Mar-a-Lago. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris is in Washington, getting briefings and doing some radio interviews. She and her running mate, Tim Walz, voted in advance polls. Walz stopped by a diner in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to encourage voters to vote in what he called a free and open election.
And I think the choice couldn't be starker. We saw the closing arguments of one of hopefulness, unity, and a focus on the middle class. The other one, a dark, divisive, focused on himself.
Harris will host an election watch party on the campus where she went to school at Howard University. The race remains tight and results could be slow to come in, which means that even when the night ends, Americans still may not know who their next president will be. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Washington.
Northern education staff, students, and residents gathered today in Yellowknife to share ideas. The gathering was hosted by the Deshinta Center for Research and Learning. It focuses on Indigenous land-based learning. One of the topics participants discussed was expanding the organization.
Hiring more Indigenous Northern faculty, having more satellite campuses or more staff in different regions that are asking for us to bring our programming in. Being able to meet the demands of the students that are saying, I want more courses like this.
Among those in attendance was the program lead for Make Way, a charitable organization that's been working with Deshinta for years. It's documenting the benefits and needs of Deshinta in hopes of attracting funding for the institution. The government of Nunavut is taking its fight against an Inuktitut language lawsuit to the country's top court. Nunavut Dungavik Incorporated filed a lawsuit against the GN in 2021, claiming it has failed to provide education in Inuktitut. NTI claims that is discriminatory against Inuit. The GN tried to get that dismissed in both the Nunavut court and the Court of Appeal, but it was struck down. So now it's appealing to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Nobody wants to be in court. That's something we've been very clear. It really does take away the limited resources we all have, whether it's financial or human resources that are there. So it's really the differences are from there, but we as a government have really indicated we had been open to have these conversations to look at what we could do together.
NTI's vice president disputes that.
We've tried to work with our government to establish curriculums, to establish Inuktitut teaching in the classrooms. And time again, we've hit a wall.
The Nunavut government was supposed to have offered Inuit education for all grade levels by 2020. It pushed the rollout of grade 4 language courses to 2026 and as late as 2039 for grade 12. In Newfoundland and Labrador, commissioners for an inquiry into the treatment of Innu in the child protection system have asked for an extension. The inquiry first launched in 2022. It's also now looking for a new commission chair. Heidi Adder has the latest.
Two of the inquiry's 3 commissioners are in Shajit this week. The community meetings are open to any Innu wanting to share their story. 2 years since the inquiry began, commissioners say a lot has been learned from the 8 community and private meetings, 3 formal hearings, and more than 80 speakers.
This is what I had hoped for, that it would be a place that the people could come in and share their truths and the experiences.
Experiences with residential schools, day schools, forced settlement, alcohol abuse, child abuse, and more. There's trauma, but also CUPE says the promise of possibility, a better future.
And we want to thrive. We want to see our kids thrive. We want to see our children thrive as well. So there's always that hope that I saw.
There is still a lot of work ahead. After this week, commissioners will begin investigations into 6 children who died either while in care or shortly after leaving care.
I guess an analogy I could use is like looking out over the harbour. And you look out over the harbour and it's really foggy. And you can't see the other side, you can't see very much. And you know that it's out there somewhere, but you're not quite sure. And so what's happening now is that the fog is clearing and clearing and clearing. And so I feel very good that we're on a very good path at this point in time.
Commissioners hope to hear about the appointment of a new commissioner chair soon, with formal hearings and investigations following soon after. Heidi Adder, CBC News, Shajit Innu First Nation.
A nonprofit organization focused on uplifting the voices of Inuit women has released a history book honoring the organization's past. It highlights milestones and memories from women who held leadership roles. It's called Respecting Tradition, Protecting Our Future. Pauktuutit's president says the book highlights important role models and hopes it'll inspire young Inuit.
I'm 47 now, but I still say I want to be like her when I grow up. And so I'm hoping like the younger generation can get that feeling of I can be like them, because they are part of them. Like the Inuit women, we're so interconnected, even though we're from all over the Inuit regions, different regions.
A virtual copy of the book is available at the organization's website. Well, after many chase the ace draws in Iqaluit, the ace has been found. Jeffrey Kaunak of Grise Fiord is taking home more than $250,000. He was declared the winner after purchasing 15 tickets. The draw is put on annually by Inukshuk High School. It acts as a fundraiser so grade 12 students can take a trip. Kaunak says winning came as a complete surprise, as you can see there.
Such a joyous moment. It was so much fun. I think a lot of you that watched know how I felt. It was that fun.
Kaunak ended up winning about $290,000. He's not sure what he wants to buy with that money yet, but says it'll come in very handy. In his view, the real winners are the students that will now get to travel to Africa. A special toonie celebrating Inuit Nunangat was unveiled by the Royal Canadian Mint in Ottawa today. 4 different artists collaborated to design the back of the coin. They each represent one of the 4 regions of Inuit Nunangat. The inner core of the coin features an image of Nuliayuk, spirit of the sea, wearing an atigi. Clockwise from Nuliayuk is a walrus with 2 beluga whales, a seal, and an Arctic char. The right of the outer ring features 4 different interpretations of Uluit. The coin begins circulating tomorrow. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
Oh, wait, are we allowed to touch, like, no, it's fine, yeah.
In Australia, a unique experiment
How come you guys don't have a table? We do have a table.
is about to unfold. A school swap that brings together 12 students from very different cultures and religions.
You do what you want to do, it's fine, I'll do me.
My fear is, instead of building bridges, they'll end up blowing them.
I want to be seen as me and not my hijab, not scary terrorists or something like that.
They reported a shipment of cocaine stolen 2 weeks ago.
We all have our vices, Detective. Oh, you find that surprising?
Dust, noise, and lowlifes.
Bloody hell. Heart is pounding. This is very hard to do.
We both know it's not an easy task.
The Great Canadian Baking Show. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Q with Tom Power. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.